Musso, and I teach at Pleasant View Middle School in Pueblo, Colorado. We're a rural school district, and these are my experiences with Scalable Game Design that I'd like to share with you. Okay, last year, what we had done at Pleasant View is we had taken and heavily become a STEM-based curriculum school. So this email came through telling me about this class, and I thought that it would really work in well with STEM. So I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll take this class, and we're going to teach video game design. Well, to give you a little bit of background about me, this will be my 31st year teaching. 26 years were in the elementary classroom, different grade levels. And then about 5 years ago, for some reason, I thought if I'm ever going to do something new, I better go do it. So I applied for a middle school math, science job. So for the last 4 years, I've been teaching some engineering curriculum and 6th grade science. So this class came through, and I thought, I can do this. Even though I wasn't really good at the robotics engineering class that I took, I thought, yeah, I can do this. So I signed up for this class, and then I remember so well being in your position last summer, because I sat in that classroom and I was surrounded by a lot of people. I felt so old. I really did, because when video games came on the scene, I was in college. And all I remember is my husband got a degree in asteroids in college because he played so much of it, but I played absolutely none. And I really never got into video games. So I sat in that classroom, and I was looking for somebody as old as me, and there were a lot of young people in there that really knew what was going on. And the class seemed to move so fast, and about the time I catch my breath and I think, I can do this, and I know what I'm doing, then the Scalable Game Design team would throw a challenge at us, or tell us to do this, and I was totally lost again. And I remember walking back to the dorms about the second or third day, and I was on the phone with my husband, and I was almost in tears. I was like, I cannot do this. I don't think it's going to work. And then I had just told my counselor when I finished school that, yeah, I'm going to teach 2 full semesters of this class come September. So I was like stuck. So I went back to the dorm. I remade Frogger. I remade every game that we did that week. And then I pulled the tutorials. Like Jennifer said, they're great. I pulled the tutorials. I went through every one of them that summer. And by the end of summer, I figured we can make Frogger, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Sokoban, and I'll get through this semester. And felt like I could probably pretty much stay ahead of the kids. Well, so that was my plan. And I sat down the first couple of weeks, and we did Frogger. And I thought, oh, I've got to show these kids exactly how it's done, and I expect their programming to look just like the tutorial. And they just flew right by me. It was pretty amazing. I went to grade their Frogger game at the end, and I thought, these kids know what's going on. They're figuring it out in way different ways than I am, and I knew if I was going to keep their attention, I just had to give them more leeway to do what they could do. So the next game, we did Sokoban, and I just said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and you guys know how to make Sokoban move. You already know that. And then I would introduce something new, and we would talk about it, and we would go from there, and I started to loosen up, and that was the best thing I could possibly do. I had a really great principal. He was very technologically oriented, and about 15 years younger than I was. So he was really into video games, and at first he came in to see what I was doing, and then he would come in more, and we would just sit and watch these kids. And they did so much peer teaching each other. The critical thinking skills, we were amazed, because it was so different than a regular classroom. A lot of these kids I'd had in my 6th grade science class, and now they were 8th graders, and what they were producing for me in this class was so much more than I ever got in a sit in your seat, let's look at the book, or listen to a lecture class. And we would just be amazed at the critical thinking skills they were using continually. And it was run like a business. You had a goal for the day. They sat down, they started their project. They got to a point where they either got tired or they got stuck. They got up, they went and played somebody else's game, they collaborated with somebody, they came back, they worked on theirs again. If they got stuck, usually they asked somebody else in the class to help them out. because they just did so much peer tutoring. You just sat back and you just watched them. And it was really cool thing to see. So we went ahead and we made all the different games. Some of the things that came out of this class were just really surprising. First of all, I'm in a rural environment, and I have a lot of boys who raise chickens. So instead of passing around Playboy, as a middle school boy might, they passed around chicken catalogs in my class. And they picked out the next chicken they were going to buy. Well, pretty soon all their games started taking on this chicken theme. So as you see right here, we have Pac-Man now as a chicken. Eating, instead of dots, he's eating bags of chicken feed. And the Pac-Man are now the ghosts chasing the chicken. So we had a lot of these thematic chicken games. To tell you about critical thinking skills, this little boy decided that he wanted to be on the front page of the arcade. When kids submit their games to the arcade, there's one page on the front of the most played games. So he decided he wanted to be on the front page of the arcade. And he figured if he got 1,000 hits on his game, kids would think it was really good and start to play it. So he went home and over 3 days pulled up this game 1,000 times. So he probably did no other homework, but got 1,000 hits, and then all of a sudden kids started following him playing his game. And he did get on the front page of the arcade, and he was probably the most popular student in my class for a long time. But the integration with other subject areas too. Every week I would leave and I would think, I've got to tell the art teacher about this. I've got to tell the math teacher about this. The art, kids do get stuck on it. But you know how hard it is to make pixelized, things look like they are. And some of these kids, the detail they got into. And for me, it really was cool to watch what they produced with the art. And here you're going to make Frogger, and you're going to make logs going down a river. These kids, instead of their log generator just being something simple, it would be a sawmill. And the logs would float off the end of the waterfall at the end. I mean, they created Coke cans with the word Coke written in it in different sizes for a shooting game that they built. It was just amazing. And the math, I kept seeing math over and over again, thinking these kids are actually using this. They understand it because they're using it. And language arts, I didn't have the kids write about the rule and why it worked the way it did, but next year I think I will have them, make their comments a lot more than I did this year. Towards the end of this whole thing, we decided that we wanted to showcase what the kids were doing because we felt that we needed more than just, my principal and I needed more than just us to see what these kids are doing. So we decided to have a holiday arcade, and we asked the kids what they wanted to do. And they decided that they would like to set up teams to play against each other. So we invited administrators from our district, high school kids, parents, teachers, and some of the other students. So we held a school-wide drawing to see who got to go to the arcade that day. And we had this right before Christmas, those days that nobody knows what to do with the kids, so it wasn't a big deal to miss class. And that afternoon, we had teams. And the kids decided, okay, we'll have 5 Frogger games on display. We'll have 5 Sokoban, 5 Space Invaders, 5 Pac-Man. And then they set about creating their games. So the 5 kids that were doing Frogger and had their games on display, they had to correlate their games so that the frog could get across the road in approximately the same time, that they had the same amount of highways, they had the same amount of river, so that it was the difficulty of each game was similar, so that no matter which team was playing whose game, it was about as difficult. And then every game had to have some kind of timer or some kind of scorekeeper on it so that we could figure out who was winning. So they went about creating their different games and, fine-tuning the games because they'd already created them so that we could set this up. And then we had the graphic arts department of our high school. They created posters for all our different games so that we could decorate and laser cut out all our little cutouts that we had on there. And then what we did is we brought all these teams together, and we had the Frogger team, the Space Invader team, the Sokoban team, And it was a mixture of administrators, teachers, kids, and they all played with each other. And the kids in the class were the scorekeepers. We had kids keeping score, watching what was going on. They would take it to the main scorekeepers who kept a leaderboard, and everybody could see who was winning and which team was winning at what time. And then at the end, we gave prizes. So that went on for the first day. The second day, we decided to produce more interest in the class and open our arcade up to the whole school. So on that day, each kid had created their very own game. And that was a really cool experience because those kids then wrote about their game. And this game that you see right here is called Gingy. And at the very beginning of this class, I asked the kids to draw what they thought they'd be able to build at the end of this semester. And this kid actually drew this game at the very beginning and said, I'm going to build this game, and then he built it. And it was about a little gingerbread guy up there in the left-hand corner. He's trying to make it out of the gingerbread factory and save the gingerbread princess down here without falling in vats of milk and disintegrating or burning up in the ovens. So he tries to get out of here. But then they had to write about their games. And it was really cool to see all the different computational skills that they put together and all the different things that they took to create their games. Some stuck really close to what we'd already built. Others did things totally different. And then they had to write about their game. They had to give tickets for reaching a certain level on your game or finishing something in a certain time. And then the kids would come around, play their games. The kids that built that game would explain how to play it. They would give tickets for whatever level you reached. And at the end, whoever had the most tickets won a prize. So we were able to introduce this to our whole school and produce interest. Okay, about a day or two after this, the superintendent of our district asked if we would present to the school board. So in February, I took a group of kids and they presented. And it was really pretty amazing. I just grabbed, kids that I thought would go that had some cool games that they'd like to show. The school board members played their games, and we had all kinds of games. The kids developed games where they could move the mouse and actually run their game. They developed games where they had two people playing against each other, so we had race car games. We took a race car game to the school board. We had the school board members play each other. These kids spoke eloquently about this program. They had had such a good experience in this. They got up and they spoke about it. They understood what they had done. They were so excited about it that when they were done, the president of our school board looked at our principal of our high school and said, you have these kids coming to you next year. What are you going to do to challenge them? So it made a big impression on them. And some of the kids I took, I had not heard 2 words from them in my 6th grade science class. And they got up and gave a presentation, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where did you come from? It was just so cool, and this was a long presentation. I mean, I think it took half an hour when it was done. They just kept going and going and going, and everybody was really, really interested in it. One of the greatest things I saw happen in this whole thing is that I had some kids, in middle school, if you're the cheerleader, you're the athlete, you're cool. In this class, it was if you could debug a program, you were cool. And I had kids that were not the athletes. And they knew how to do this. And everybody looked to them. And I had one little boy that developed this game. And he was pretty shy, very intelligent, pretty shy. And all of a sudden, he knew how to do stuff. And kids started asking him. And his communication skills just became so good that by the end of this, he would help us showcase our school. And he would walk up to an adult, shake their hand, and say, this is who I am. Come and see what we're doing with AgentSheets at Pleasant View. And he gave a tremendous school board presentation. And when we were done with the semester, I'm teaching an environmental class at the Division of Wildlife next week. And they do a game called Oh Deer, where they do limiting factors on deer populations. And I said, I would like you to create a spin-off of that and create a video game so I could show people when I do the class this summer what video game design is. So he came in during his access hours. He actually brought one of the other girls in the class with him because she drew better than he did, and they collaborated. And this was one of his early ones. I don't have his final one. But she drew his deer, she drew his trees, you know, and then he did the programming. And he developed this game, and it's come a lot further. He has hunters now. He has variables down here. If the deer reaches a certain amount of thirst, certain amount of hunger, he dies. He goes around and eats the green grass, and the grass repopulates itself after time. And when I teach this class next week, he will be the helper for me to teach the adults. So he's going to be my helper. It'll be his first paid computer programming gig. But we'll see. I'm fairly certain, you know, this kid right now has come so far in his ability to work with adults and to talk, and I'm pretty sure he'll probably become a computer programmer in the future. But actually, out of the 30 years that I've taught, I've got to say this class has probably taught me more about how kids learn and what keeps them motivated than any other class I've ever taken or taught. Any questions? Uh-huh.
You know, when you were talking about debugging,
Uh-huh.
okay, what were some of your trials because being new?
Debugging. One of the first things I did was, by the time the kids get through, and they'll go through this week, you guys will do some debugging, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they'll do some debugging, some basic debugging, and that'll probably be on the wiki somewhere, I think now. I took a lot of notes on, you know, how to debug stuff. And then I went home that summer and I created all these. And then by the time I'd seen that same thing happen again and again, there were a couple of nights where I took home kids' games and tried to figure out what was happening. And a lot of times it was because they layered one thing over another. A lot of times if I couldn't figure it out, I spent 3 days on a game. One girl wanted to make a ball that fell down the screen and would hit different levels, and she always wanted it to raise so it never hit the floor. Spent 3 days trying to figure out how to get that game to work. And this little boy that created this game came over in 10 minutes, told her how to do it. And a lot of times you say, I would start my day with, what are your problems? And who knows how to figure that one out? Because sometimes I couldn't. And, you know, there's times that I would take it home and I would try to figure it out, but a lot of times a kid in class could figure it out.
This just comes to my mind now. We got YouTube and all this. What about filming that? And then setting up an area where
They could actually...
Yeah, like a debugging station.
That's
You
cool. Okay.
actually set
Check
your class
this,
up
check
like
this.
a game, you know.
Well, and last year a lot of the teachers that were in this gave me a lot of hints, and one of them was, you know, when the kids walk in, have them write on the board any problems they're having. And then go through and say, okay, so-and-so is having this problem. Is there anybody that can help him today or help her today? And a lot of times they can help each other. Or sometimes we were trying to make a counter and couldn't figure out how to make it work right. And I was in my next class, and actually one of the kids in my class got out of somebody's class, I'm not sure whose it was, but came in and gave me a piece of paper that says, this is the program to make the counter work. Figured it out. I mean, they catch on so fast. But usually the best thing you can do is to pull away a little bit and let them try to figure it out on their own. And, but the debugging, a lot of the major things that you're going to run into, they're going to go over with you. And they'll have written down how to get out of those situations. And that works pretty well. And then we would showcase. Every morning we would showcase. We would say, okay, who wants to show their work to somebody else? And a lot of kids usually want to. And if they knew that they were going to show, they'd put a lot more effort into it. So, but we would showcase somebody's stuff. And they want to play each other's things. They do. They want to play each other's games. Any other questions? Well, thank you, and have a good week. I know you'll enjoy it.
Thank you.